welcome back. Today we are going to make one of my very favorite things. We are a cinnamon loving family. I have an assistant here, our dog Golly. He's a standard poodle and he just decided he needed to be in the shot. So we are going to make today delicious cinnamon rolls. It is not Sue Becker's recipe. If you're here for Sue Becker stuff, sorry, but it is really good. Time tested. My whole family loves it. We bring them to my husband's work. We bring them to family events, and like the Bible says, laugh with those who laugh and mourn with those who mourn. If you ever have somebody in your life who had a baby and you want to bring something, or maybe lost somebody and you need to bring something to comfort, these are your go-to things. So join us today as we make delicious cinnamon rolls, just traditional. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to cinnamon rolls. You can slice up apples real thin and put them in there, or some pumpkin puree, or there's 100 different things you can do. And this dough is so good and versatile. You can really do a lot with it. So I hope that you will enjoy this as much as we do. So come along and have cinnamon rolls. He is just a buddy today. It's pretty chilly, so I've already turned my oven light on so that it will be nice and warm because the dough needs to rise. So, all right, let's get started. We have all of our ingredients laid out here, ready to go. This dough is so yummy. It's so good, and you can use it in a myriad of ways. Once you taste it, you'll get some ideas of other things you'd like to use this dough in. So what I like to do when I make any sort of dough with yeast is to get all the liquid ingredients ready, warm them up, put them in here, put the sugar portion. With yeast, there's usually some sort of honey or granulated sugar. We use honey granules. Whatever your sweetener is, put it in here. Then put the yeast in, mix it up, and let it rest a minute so that the yeast can activate and get nice and foamy. I did recently get a batch of bad yeast, and because I took the time to let it foam up, I could see there was a problem, so I didn't end up using it, and thankfully I always try and have something else on hand, so I was able to still make what I was going to make. But if you take this time, you don't waste all of your ingredients and find out after your hour of rising that it didn't actually rise and now you have to throw it away and start again. So nice little trick to make sure everything works right. But I have a little kind of silicone measuring doohickey. I guess I don't ever know the words for things. So silicone measuring cup. And I put all of my liquid ingredients in this, including butter, because we're going to melt some butter, and warm it up together so I don't have to like boil over a pot or whatever. I just go for easy at this point. So we start with a cup of milk. If you can use whole milk, that's the best. You want all the good fat in there. So a cup of milk, a half a cup of water, and then we're going to do a third cup of butter, which is, geez, like 5.5 tablespoons, something like that. Well, yeah, something like 5.5 tablespoons. So I'm just going to slice it, throw it in here. I did, by the way, clean the counter from where my dog had his feet on the counter. So for anybody who was concerned, we made it a clean working environment. So all of our liquids, cup of milk, half a cup of water, and a third cup of butter. So I'm just going to stick this right in the microwave and get it warm. We don't want it boiling hot, because that'll kill the yeast. But you want a nice warm. You can stick your finger in and feel that it's warm. Even I just kind of do like as hot as the tap water gets. I've never had a problem with that because you're going to put it into your cold mixing bowl, unless you're really clever and heat up your bowl first. I don't know, but it cools it down enough. So let me microwave this. Okay, I microwaved this for about a minute, 20 seconds, but stopping in the middle of it to stir and make sure of the temperature. So I'm just going to put it right in my mixer. The butter's not completely melted, but it's very soft. It'll keep melting on its own. Okay, we want about 2.5 teaspoons. So, you know, I just get a tablespoon and kind of don't fill it all the way, but 2.5. It's also really cold in my house. It's cold this time of year, so a little bit of extra yeast won't hurt anything. So we have our milk, water, butter, and yeast. And now I'm going to add honey granules. So we want about, if you do granulated sugar, then it's 1/2 cup. If you do honey granules, I tend to add a little bit more because they're bigger granules than sugar, so it's not going to fill your cup quite the same way. So whatever you're using, just take that into account. So I just go over a bit. I'm going to mix it just a bit. And then we're just going to let the yeast do its job and get foamy. And I don't know why, I cover it just to make a nice little warm environment in there. And I don't know, about 5 minutes. And you can take this time if you're milling your own flour to mill your flour. Anytime I use yeast, I use hard wheat, and I tend to do a 2/3 hard red, 1/3 hard white, because I just think it tastes better. I've done all hard white, I've done all hard red. Everything's delicious, everything tastes nice, but my preference, I think, is 2/3 hard red, 1/3 hard white. So I mix that, or I mill it while I let my yeast go, and save time that way, I guess. Okay, I've milled my flour, and the yeast is nice and foamy and activated, and while I mill and wait, I try to multitask and clean up as I go, so it's not such an ordeal at the end. But what we have left is to add 5.5 to 6 cups of flour. When you're using freshly milled, as you know, it's the motto of the channel here, it's never really the same measurement twice. You need to know your dough, and I'll show you the dough so you know what to look for. Add at least 5 cups in, and then I would go by, you know, 1/2 cups, kind of let it mix a little bit more, add a little bit, and then you'll see when your dough starts to come together, because it has to do with weather, moisture in the wheat as it was growing, all of those things add up. So I'd hate to tell you 5.5 to 6 cups every time down the line, and you know, you come out with a wet dough or a too dry dough. So you know, you need to make it a few times, eyeball it. You'll know what your dough needs to look like and feel like, and you know, you'll just go by sense pretty soon. And you guys are doing amazing with your regular bread dough, so I know that you know what you're doing. So 5.5 to 6 cups of flour, a tablespoon of salt. Now that might seem like a lot, and it is, but you don't taste it. And think about all of the sweet filling we're going to put on the inside of this, so the salt really does help balance out. So don't worry about that. And we used unsalted butter, so that's less salt you have to worry about. 1 egg and a tablespoon of vanilla. So I also, we have a new flock of chickens. So we have older chickens and newer chickens, and they just started laying, so I thought I'd share with you. These are the eggs from our chickens that have been laying a year or so now. And these are our new layers. We have little Easter eggers, and kind of a mix because we hatched our own, so I don't quite know what they are. But look at the size difference, they're so cute. So if I was using only these, I'd probably add 2, but you know, I think that's the cutest little thing. I did not know that new layers laid such little eggs, but we're having fun looking at all the colors of our eggs this year and all the different layers that we have. So we will start adding our ingredients. So first we'll add our tablespoon of vanilla. It doesn't really matter what order you go in. I just like to add a cup of flour at least before I add the salt. So whatever you want to do. to put an egg in a different container in case something's wrong with your egg. So you don't waste everything you've just done. Okay, we've done vanilla, egg. I'm going to add a cup of flour and then the salt so I don't forget. Dry it because I use vanilla. Okay, I added 5. I'm just going to let it mix a little bit, see how it looks. You'll notice I add flour and then I kind of tap it down. Freshly milled flour is very fluffy, and you might get an off measurement if you don't, for me anyways. I kind of tap it down to get it to settle a little bit. Then it's a bit closer to like your packaged store flour. So I tend to just try and kind of get some of the air out and then measure it. So I'm going to do the next half cup. I didn't even add it all in. I'm just going to let it mix, see how it goes. Alright, so I'm just going to let it mix, knead itself for about 4 minutes. I used about just under 6 cups of flour this time, which last time I think I used a little bit over 6 cups of flour, but it turned out wonderful. It's great. Nothing sticks to it here. This is a really nice dough. Feels good. It is not sticking to my hands. Nice and supple here. So all we're going to do is let it rise. I have some olive oil. I just kind of slather it around. I've had the light on in my oven this whole time, kind of just warming it enough so there's a nice happy warm place for it to rise. You want to let this rise till truly double. That might take longer than an hour. Usually the rule of thumb is an hour, let it rise an hour for most breads or baked goods. Right now I think the best thing to do is to just keep it going. If it takes an hour and a half, if it maybe takes 2 hours. My house tends to be a little bit colder, so it's going to take a little bit longer, but you really want a nice fluffy bread and to get that big rise in. So we're going to put it in the oven now to let it rise an hour. 2 hours. My house is just very cold today, but it turned out very nice. Good dough. Okay, so we're going to roll this out and get a nice big rectangle, and then we're going to sprinkle on 1 1/4 cups of brown sugar, or I'm using Succanat, and a heaping tablespoon, because we love cinnamon. You could do less if you're not as big a fan. A heaping tablespoon of cinnamon, and you're going to whisk that together so it's nice and mixed in, and heat up 1 stick of butter. You don't want it to be liquidy, because then it'll spill everywhere. You want it to stick to the dough that we're going to roll out, and then hold the good sprinkles of stuff we're going to put on. We want everything to stick together. If it's too liquidy, it'll run off or it won't hold as well. If it's, if you microwaved it a bit too much, put it in the fridge for a minute. It'll get firmer quick. It's not hard. Okay, so we'll probably fast forward this because this takes a while, but we're aiming for a good, nice big rectangle here. Okay, mine's about 28 inches long. I'm not too worried about the size of that. I made a few mistakes, but it's going to be on the inside, and really we're going to roll it, so it doesn't matter. So the next step is going to be to spread your butter liberally, whole stick of butter, all over, so that yummy butter goodness will melt in, and it will hold our delicious sugar and cinnamon sprinkles. If you're a fan of nutmeg, add nutmeg, or pumpkin pie spice, or whatever makes you happy. I love these little pastry brushes. A while ago, I used to only use spatulas because I didn't know about pastry brushes, and it was pretty tricky, but this is just like painting when you're a kid, It's kind of fun. All cooking can be meditative if you allow yourself. Okay, does it have to be perfect and even everywhere? No, nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect. So do your best, spread it out, be happy. So then, if you like to get a spoon, use a spoon. If you want to dump it, dump it. But the big thing is, whatever sugar you're using and whatever spices you're using, you want to make sure they're really well mixed together. Because once it's on here, you're not going to get to do too much else to it. You might have one roll that's more pungent with cinnamon than others if you're not careful. I'm just going to sprinkle away and then spread it out. Lots of cinnamon. Here is a good place to add your own twist. So if you want to just sprinkle a little bit of a different spice on top for just a hint of a flavor, now's your time. Raisins, go for it. If you want to slice apples really thin, I would recommend super thin. You could do a layer of apples on here, maybe even underneath the sugar or on top, and then roll it up and you could have apple cinnamon rolls. Just know they probably won't stick together in that perfect circle that cinnamon rolls are kind of known for. Okay, so now that we've got all our stuff on, mostly evenly, we are just going to roll it up as best we can, keeping a nice tight roll. You don't want a lot of looseness in your rolls, okay? So we will be rolling a little, pinch a bit, not like pinch it tight, just pinch it to keep a taut roll, and we'll work our way down the line like that. Getting it going is the trickiest part. Once you have it going, it pretty much rolls itself nicely. So I'm just getting a good hold, pulling it towards me a little bit and rolling it a little further out. Get a good hold, pull it towards me a bit, roll it further out so you have nice, good, tight rolls. All right. So here we go. Now we want to aim for about 20. So I'm going for half here-ish. Nothing's perfect. Nothing has to be perfect. But I'll do it by halves. Now, I am not going all the way through and pushing down on my mat because you don't want to use a sharp knife and break through your mat. So I'm just getting to the very end and then kind of pulling up on the roll. I have seen people use dental floss where you get a string of dental floss and then cut it with the dental floss. I've done it. It works. To me, it's fiddly. It's another step, and I use the little pre-done flossers, which, you know, I don't carry a lot of the regular floss, so I don't always have it on hand. But if you want, you can get a string of some kind floss, put it under to the size you want it, pull it up, and then just, you know, take the floss over itself and squeeze it through, and it makes a good roll. It works. It's just, I don't know, a knife works for me. So okay, so I'm going to cut the end off here. I'm not throwing it away. I will bake that, however. I'm just eyeballing it. Okay, so then you want to do 5 and 5. Let's see. Once you get your first one, just put your next one in line and you'll get nice even cuts so they're all about the same thickness. All right, these are not perfect. They're not the exact same width, perfect measurements, but they're going to be delicious. They're going to cook really well. You want to put your thicker ones on the outside of the pan and the thinner ones in the middle because they'll take longer to bake. It's not going to make that much of a difference. Okay, you can use a 9x13, but then you're going to need a little side one to cook 20 of these. If you do them bigger than this, like fatter ones so you have fewer rolls, it's going to take longer to cook, but if you want to fit it all into one dish, that's great. You just have to make them thicker and cook them a little bit longer, make them longer. I found this, and it seems to be a 16x11, and I can fit them all in here really nicely, and they turn out really well. And I just took regular parchment paper, and you just cut the ends Nothing fancy, doesn't have to be like exactly cut the ends. When you stick them in, it kind of folds in on itself. So you have your lined sheet. Now, will some of the cinnamon leak out onto the bottom? You'll have a bit of washing up to do? Yeah, of course, but you know, if you cut it a little too deep. That, to me, the reason I use this is to just get them out easier without having to spray a bunch of stuff on. But if you do it like this, it tends to fit in here a little bit nicer. So I'm just going to cut these, load the thicker ones on the outside, the thinner ones on the inside, and then we're going to let them rise again. Any pan you have will do. I used to do 2 pans and bake them, and these I would always pull out first. But the size of roll you get with this recipe, I really like this size, this thickness of roll. It seems to be really good and keep nice for a few days. They get eaten up really quick, but so if you do a regular 9x13, you might want to do a side dish, or if you can find this 16x11 pan or happen to have one, either way works. Okay. One last little tip that I found. If you want your rolls, you can put them in just like this. They're going to rise, then they're going to bake beautifully. If you want it to look just a little bit more like store-bought, you know, fancy bakery, if you push up on the bottom just a little bit, nothing crazy, they'll rise up, and then they rise really beautifully and bake really beautifully, and they look more like, you know, the nice cafe cinnamon rolls. So we just take your regular roll. Aren't they beautiful? I just love cinnamon rolls. Then you push up just a little bit. I guess it's probably better to do it over the pan so all the stuff that falls out you'll still get on the bottom. So we want to have some spaces in between because they're going to rise. Okay, so as you can see, we have them lined with space around each one because they're going to rise. They are not perfect. Some are thicker, some are thinner. I did not take the time to mark it perfectly, but if you have one of these mats with a ruler, you can do that. If I was going to present these to a friend or family member, I would take the time to make it perfect, you know, get my ruler and kind of slice them perfectly so they'd be perfect. This, my family and I are going to enjoy, and they taste delicious, and I don't think any of my kids or my husband would say, oh no, you know, doesn't look all equal. It's not the British baking show where they have to be identical. So the taste is amazing. So what we're going to do is, I'm actually going to stick this right next to the smallest one in the middle, just so they get to be baked also, because I don't like wasting anything. So we are going to put these back in your warm oven, not turned on, just with the light on, or however you warm your oven up to not bake, just let it rise. We want these to get, not to double per se, no less than 30 minutes. Because it took me almost 2 hours to rise this dough, I might go 45 minutes, maybe an hour, but no less than 30 minutes. If I'm making these in the summer, it's for sure only 30 minutes, but you want to give them a good chance to just fluff up and rise and get that goodness in there. So I will see you in a little bit after these have risen. Here they have risen for about 45 minutes. I would like them a little more puffy than that, but we're just going to call it at 45 minutes. So we have our oven preheating at 350, and we're going to bake them somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes. I'd say probably this will be around 17, but 350 for 15 to 20 minutes. Our cinnamon rolls are in the oven, so now is the time to make one of my favorite parts of it, is the delicious cream cheese frosting for it. So we start with 8 ounces of as room temperature as you can get it cream cheese. We have 4 ounces of unsalted butter, 2 tablespoons of vanilla, and this is really one of the only times I use regular sugar. I need powdered sugar. And I have tried using the honey granules and blending them to make them real fine, and it just never comes out quite the same. So it's the 80-20 rule. So I use regular powdered sugar. We need about 4 cups of it. And then at the very end, we're going to add a tablespoon at a time whole milk, or I happen to have heavy cream, so I'm going to use heavy cream. We're just going to keep adding it till we get it to the thickness that you like. Some people like a really runny, dipping kind of a sauce for it. Others like a frosting texture, thicker, fuller texture. So whatever you like, mix everything together but the milk, and then at the end add it in a tablespoonful at a time until it's the consistency that you like for your family. So 8 ounces of cream cheese. And 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And then 2 tablespoons vanilla. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 cups of the powdered sugar before I start to mix it, because it is just going to fly everywhere. Anybody else like me, I cannot use powdered sugar without making a mess. There's our cinnamon rolls. Now I'm just going to add a tablespoon at a time, either whole milk or heavy cream. going to scrape down the bowl. Here are our cinnamon rolls, looking delicious, and oh, I wish you could smell it. It smells so good. I'm just going to set them right here to cool. Shouldn't be too hard. See, I still have butter and some harder cream cheese stuck on the side, so you really want to make sure you get everything nice and mixed in. Scrape the bottom. Okay, what we can do is put a small little dollop on each of these while it's still really hot, and that way the frosting will melt in. So if you're a frosting loving family or you just appreciate it, it'll sink in there, and then save the rest for when it's cooled and spread it over evenly so you can have that nice white frosting look, but also some has sunk in underneath. So I'll just spend a little time putting a little dollop in the middle so it'll just melt on in there while it's still hot. Oh, they smell so good. I think I'm going to need a spoon. I have one daughter who is, just wrong and does not like frosting, but we let her be wrong. So one row of these, I'll not put any frosting on for her. Now, if you want to go ahead and put all the frosting on so it sinks down in the cracks in between and gets gooey and yummy, and it kind of turns clear and disappears, but there'll be some white, thick frosting on it, by all means, go ahead. My family kind of likes to see the frosting on the top. Then they fight over who has the most frosting, so that's just natural. So I just kind of do it this way, and I'll wait to put the rest on it until they're much, much cooler. So I'm just going to let that melt in as these cool, and then put more frosting on top, except for the row that my oldest daughter does not like frosting, so she can have frosting-free ones, which my middle daughter says, good, more for the rest of us. So, well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this as much as my family does, and if you ever want your house to smell amazing, oh, make these. If you have people you can bring them to, bring them. They are such a great treat, and they freeze beautifully. You can warm them up in the microwave, you can warm them up in the oven. If you want to make these the night before, get them all rolled, put them in here, and then cover them with something, saran wrap or a lid or whatever. Put it in your fridge in the morning, 30 minutes before you're going to bake it. Get it out of the fridge, let them kind of get to somewhat of a room temperature and kind of rise for 30, 45 minutes while your oven, do your morning stuff. Turn your oven on. When it's ready, pop them in, and you can bake them for, these ended up baking about 17 minutes, I was right. So you can do that the night before, so you can wake your family up to the smell of delicious cinnamon rolls. You can make them into and roll them out and then freeze them just like this, and then pop them into a bag, and you can make them one a morning if you want. They do freeze really well, and they defrost really nicely, and you can bake them. You really can't go wrong with this. This is kind of a foolproof method. I was going to end the video there, but then my daughter said, no, we have to have a taste test. So, Evangeline, please.
It's awesome.
It's what?
Awesome.
It's awesome. Okay, they're delicious. So we have a child approved. My other kids are out on a music lesson right now, so it is just us home. Oh dear, well we're not going to use that again. But these are a family favorite. We truly enjoy them. So I will see you next week. Thank you for joining me, and I'm excited to hear if they turned out for you and any changes you guys do in it, adding nutmeg or apples or whatever. So let me know. Have a wonderful week. Good? Yeah? Okay, you can keep eating.